Thank you, uh, Laurie, and thank you, Emilio. You've actually said just about everything that I want to say, so I'll just say goodnight, and that'll be the end of it. You've covered it a lot, but I have a few more things to add in here. I think that some people might find interesting. Uh, we we've walked about 1,000 kilometers on the Camino, my wife and I, um, and on the Francis and the Portuguese, and we've carried our backpacks all of those ways. And we've done well. This trip on the Inglés was our eighth trip on the Camino, starting in 2013. But my wife Betsy has developed a condition that makes walking for her difficult. And so we decided on this trip that we were going to go a little bit easier on her and provide some support so that she would not have to, so it wouldn't be so challenging for her. So I actually contracted with a tour company. It's called gallywonders.com down here. You can go to their website to provide full support for us along the way. And I'll show you what that support involves in a minute. We went from Santiago to A Coruña by a private car that was provided by Galley Wonders. We spent 2 nights in A Coruña, and then we went to Ferrol by private car, again provided by Galley Wonders, and then spent a night in Ferrol. And then we walked from there into Santiago in this supported way, which you'll see what that is involved with in a moment here. This is the actual program that Galley Wonders provided for us. I'm obviously not going to go through it since it's heavily detailed here, but they booked for us all of the places where we would stay, except in A Coruña. That I booked myself. They provided breakfast and dinner almost every day, which they prepaid for. They provided luggage transport for us, so we wouldn't have to deal with that. My wife really couldn't carry a backpack. I could, but she couldn't. I'll be going through some of these places, all of these places where we stayed. It was a slow walk. It was not a fast walk. So the idea was to provide support for us so that we would not have to, so it wouldn't be too challenging for my wife. Here's a few more things that they provided. They provided taxi support so that if we got halfway through a day and Betsy was having difficulty walking, I could call them and they would send a taxi. And we used this almost every day, and it was very efficient. They did show up within 10 or 15 minutes with the taxi to take us the last part of the walk. They provided luggage transfer. However, I negotiated with this on them with them on this. They wanted me to have the luggage out there at 8:30 in the morning, and we like to sleep a little bit later. So I negotiated that the luggage didn't have to be there until 10 a.m. in the morning. They charged me a little extra for that. A 24-hour emergency phone, and so forth. And the total price for this was a fixed price for everything that I've described, was 1,580 euros per person, or 3,100 euros for the two of us. Now you might say, well, that's expensive. Yes, it is, but it's not that expensive. 140 euros a night for everything that they provided, I thought was reasonable. You can spend a lot more than that on this type of a tour in some of the major cities in Europe or in the States, for that matter. So the walk that we took, or the tour that we took, is shown in this map. It shows the cities that we stayed at in various places. We first went from Santiago to, let me get my pointer option here, the laser pointer, from Santiago up to A Coruña by private car, and spent 2 nights at A Coruña. And then we had a private car that drove us to Ferrol. They didn't go all the way back down to Maison do Vento. It cuts across someplace in here, and then up to Ferrol, up at the top. And all this was provided as part of the package. We didn't have to pay extra for it. The driver was great, told us stories along the way. We had a great time with the drivers that drove us. They were always on time. They helped us with our luggage and helped Betsy get in and out of the car. And so that worked out pretty well. we in A Coruña, we splurged a bit, and we stayed at a very nice four-star hotel. It was an NH. If you're familiar with NH hotels in Europe, you know that they are upper crust. And as you saw in the map that Emilio showed, A Coruña is on an inlet. It's a harbor, and this was the view from our dining room table. Okay, this was the view from our bedroom window. The pools, I don't think the hotel owns the pools. I think they're public pools. We never went swimming. It was rather chilly, but and I didn't see that many people swimming, to tell you the truth. This is the main plaza, which is the I can't remember what the name of it was here. The Plaza Maria Pita. And there's restaurants all the way around the plaza. We ate at one of them one night. One night we ate actually at the hotel, and the next night we ate at one of the restaurants in the plaza. This is the Tower of Hercules, which you've heard a lot about already. Everybody who goes there has to go to that. And this is actually the Tower of Hercules from a distance. I think in Emilio's photo, we saw this over his shoulder there. So you get an idea of what the lay of the land is. As people have said, A Coruña is a very interesting city. I encourage you to spend at least 2 nights there, maybe 3. It's got a nice old town. It has good food. It's definitely worth spending some time there. Then from there, we went to Ferrol and stayed at the Parador. And this was booked by the tour company for us. This is where our actual tour began. This is the Parador. And if you don't know what Paradors are, they're older buildings that have been converted into luxury accommodations. Ferrol is a naval center. And so when you look out, you'll see ships and so forth. And this was the view from our bedroom window that you showing the harbor and the ships. This is the kilometer 0 of the Camino Inglés. This is the monument that marks the beginning of the Camino Inglés. And then I think we saw this on the wall on one of the other slides. And this is the Monastery de San Martino that you walk by on your way out of Ferrol. So we started walking out of Ferrol, and we spent the night wandering around Ferrol. It's an interesting town. Not a lot there, but it's interesting wandering around. And we had walked all the way out to the kilometer 0, which is several kilometers from the Parador, and wandered around that area and the port and so forth before going to dinner. We had dinner in the Parador that night, and it was quite pleasant. Then we started walking from the Parador the next day. I honestly don't remember how far we walked that day before we felt that it was necessary to get a taxi to help Betsy. We actually went quite a bit farther than other people went. Let's see. Laurie went to Neda, okay, and it goes along the water, as you can see here. It goes right next to the inlet. We actually turned around that and came down a little bit more to about this point here. But they booked us into this really outstanding inn called Pazo de la Merced, as you can see. Our room was right here at the top, facing the inlet that you see here. This is the inner courtyard, and they had a wedding that night. So we hung out our window and looked down on the wedding ceremony, which was great fun, seeing what was going on there. Now they did not provide us a meal at this accommodation. They drove us into the town of, I don't know exactly what the town is there. It's not Nida, but it's another town, and put us into a bar that offered us what I thought was a rather poor meal. It was sardines and I don't know, whatever else it was. And so I got a little bit irritated at this and asked for something better. which they gave us, but they charged us an extra 30 euros for it. So I'm a little bit irritated about that. In fact, overall, I was not that pleased with the food that we had on this tour. If I did this again in the future, I would not prepay for the meals. I would go out and find my own restaurant. I think it would be better. Breakfast is fine, but dinners, some were okay, but most were pretty ordinary. From Neda, we went to Ponta de Oma, okay, and stayed at the Hotel Oemesa, which is right on the river. This is the view of the bridge here. This is the view from our room of the town. It's an interesting little town to wander around. This is the what's this called? Inglés Santiago, if I remember correctly. This church. It's an interesting little town to wander around for a few hours. We had dinner in the restaurant because it had been prepaid, and this was a case where I really would have liked to have gone to one of the restaurants in town rather than the rather commercial meal that was prepared for us in the restaurant. So we were walked. I don't have any pictures of the paths. You've seen those already. And then I don't remember exactly where we decided to call for a taxi, and so that Bessie would be able to walk, wouldn't have to walk the rest of the way. I would say that we walked about half the distance to Santiago from Ferrol, and the rest of the way we taxied. Then we went to Minho, and Minho is down on the path here that you can see, and stayed at the Hotel Cristal de la Rias. I'm going to do a little language lesson here. Rio is river in Spanish. Ria is inlet in Spanish. And there's all these inlets along there that you walk around and by and so forth. Here's one that we walked next to for a while. There was this incredible beach right in front of the hotel where people were promenading along, and we did exactly that and sat in one of the benches. There's my wife Betsy sitting in one of the benches with the evening sun on her face, and it was very pleasant to sit there. Now Minho, then we walked out of Minho the next day, and we got a little lost. The yellow arrows were not very obvious in Minho. In fact, this hotel was sort of off the track, and we were told where to go, and we ended up spending quite a bit of time wandering around in circles in Minho before we found the path, which got us to this inlet down here. In fact, it was interesting. It got us to this inlet, and according to the guidebook, there was a cafe along the way, a bar where we could get lunch. So we did not have lunch as part of the plan, so we planned to stop for lunch along the way. Well, it turned out that when we got there was a big sign that said closed. So that's something that we ran into several places along the way, as a matter of fact. I can't remember. I think I had some snacks in my backpack that we ate. From there, we went to Betanzos and stayed in a rather commercial hotel called the Hotel Garlos. Betanzos is an interesting town. It's not spectacular. It has this, whatever you call it, here in the middle of town. This church here is outside of towns. It's about halfway between Minho and Precedo. The room was comfortable. It was a 2-star hotel. It was fine. The meal that they planned for us was not very appealing, so we actually found another restaurant in Betanzos to have dinner, which turned out to be much better. From there, we were supposed to go to a town called Lero, and this became a bit confusing because I found Lero on the map, and we ended up there. We got there, but there wasn't anything in Lero. I think there was a church, and I don't even think that there was a shop at all. So we were out in the middle of what looked like nowhere, as a matter of fact. It did say Lero on the map, but it wasn't much of anything. So I called the tour company, and I said, well, we're at what we think is Lero. Where is this place where we're supposed to stay, the Costa de Agua? And they said, oh, we'll come pick you up. Well, they ended up driving us 15 minutes or 20 minutes from where we had stopped till we got to this place. And I don't even know what route we took or where it was, to be honest with you. but it was a lovely little inn in the countryside. I mean, it was. I took a picture of the bedroom here just to see how charming it was. Uh, Charming little restaurant with a wood burning fireplace in it. Um, it was, you can see the stone walls and everything there. There's our luggage that we had sitting out waiting to be picked up the next day. And so it was, and the local house cat, of course. And so I thought this was one of the nicest little places that we could stay in. I was hoping that this would be the type of place we would stay in all along the way. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite like that. Then we went on to Maison do Vento, which is well, it's just past Bruma. Bruma, you've seen this picture of the albergue Bruma already. And this is the meeting point for the route from um, A Coruña. And you go through what Brierley refers to as a sculpture park. Well, that's being polite, to tell you the truth. Um, there are these there's this metal dinosaur that happens to have a mannequin in its mouth, and this metal thing here with other things on it. And there's all these metal sculptures. It's one of the most bizarre things that I've ever seen on the Camino. Um, I'm sure Emilio and Laurie walked through it too, and we all just sort of shook our heads. What was this about? I don't know the story behind it. I don't have any idea, but it is really, really a strange experience to see this in the middle of nowhere. We stayed at a rather nondescript hotel and had a rather nondescript dinner in the hotel, but and met some other pilgrims. I remember sitting across the table from some Spanish, I believe, pilgrims and having a good chat with them. So it wasn't, this is a, not, it was a comfortable hotel. There's nothing wrong with it, with a ensuite bathroom. It just didn't have the charm of some of the other places where we stayed. From Maison do Vento, we went to another out of the way location in an area in a town called Arua, which is very hard to find on the map. And the tour company has booked us into a place called the Dona Maria, which also was very charming, was lovely, as a matter of fact. You can see what it looks like there. It was across the street from this bar here. I think we went over there and had a drink first. I don't know where this church was. I can't remember. The only problem is the proprietors weren't very nice. We got a rather ordinary meal from them. The room was nice. The little inn was nice, but I wouldn't recommend it because the proprietors were more interested in getting us out of there, getting through with the meal, and so they can go to bed. I think I don't really know, but we had a comfortable night there. From there, we walked or took a taxi, I don't recall the details, to Seguero, and stayed at the Seguero hostel. And this was quite a nice hostel. It's they call it a hostel. I don't know whether it's qualifies as an albergue or whatever, but you can see the room we had, the double room we had was really very pleasant with a private ensuite bath. I'm sorry it's such a mess there, but that's the way it was. And they had a really nice place to sit on the river right in front, where we sat and had a drink and the view of the river. There wasn't much that we did in the town of Seguero. We were tired, and I think we had our beer and had our dinner and went to bed. And the dinner was okay, but again, some of the meals were pretty good and some were just okay. From Seguero, we went on to Formaris, and I don't know how much of this we walked and how much we taxied. I can't really remember those details. And stayed at the Hotel Castro, which was nice. We had another not terribly special dinner, but in the back behind the hotel, behind this, by the parking lot, there's this mural on the wall. It actually wraps around to the right, another 100 meters or so, of pilgrims walking, and it's quite a unique mural. I've never seen anything like that. And then out right at that point is the start of the Enchanted Forest. And Laurie had told us, walk through the Enchanted Forest. We thought, and so we stopped there, we looked at it, we said, all right, tomorrow when we get up, we're going to walk through the Enchanted Forest and into Santiago, because that was the plan. Well, the next morning we got up, it was raining. It was not a pleasant day at all. And I don't mind walking in the rain, but I don't like doing it a lot. So we decided to taxi in. We got a taxi, and we had them take us to the edge of the old town of Santiago, and we walked in from there, and with our packs and with our stuff, and the taxi took our luggage ahead. So the tour company had booked us into the Parador in Santiago, and we spent one night there. If you haven't been in the Parador, you should go in and take a look at it. It's a museum piece. This was our room here. It overlooks the courtyard. It doesn't overlook the plaza in front, so it's very, very quiet. The bathroom is behind me. It was a very comfortable room. We had dinner in the Parador, and it was very good. And breakfast the next day. It was a splurge. There's no question about it. If you want to stay at the Parador, it's going to cost. But again, this was all built into the price that we paid for the entire trip. So here we are in Santiago, finally, at the end of 11 nights or whatever it was, and it's our last Camino. It may be our last because of Betsy's infirmaries. We'll just have to see. It was definitely worth it. I have people that will probably, some people may say that we didn't do a real Camino because we took taxis and we didn't carry our luggage, and we didn't stay in the most bedbug infested albergues that we could find. I would be glad to sit down and have a long discussion / argument with them. I think it doesn't matter how you do the Camino. It only matters that you do it. And this is the way we had to do it. We had no choice given my wife's physical condition. And so we did it. And believe me, I believe that this was as much a Camino as the person who walked 40 kilometers a day with a 40-pound pack. And I'd be glad to discuss that with someone who feels differently about that.